almost. All right. Well, cool. Well, we can get into all of that. And I'd like to begin our journey with we're on the 4 year anniversary of the pandemic. Like today is like the beginning of it. How did you survive that time period and how did it change you?
Okay. So actually the beginning of the pandemic, I was in a car accident in November 2019, left me paralyzed from the waist down, T10 paraplegic, and I was actually released from the hospital in Denver, Colorado, on February 14th, 2020. So about a month before the pandemic hit. So my girlfriend and I had just moved into a new apartment. I was adjusting to a spinal cord injury and had a host of serious health issues. And we basically, the next thing we knew, we were locked inside of an apartment for an indeterminate amount of time. She's actually an emergency room nurse. So she was kind of front line at the pandemic, and it was terrifying at first, but we kind of got the quickest insight into it maybe not being as dangerous as we originally thought, just because she wasn't seeing that firsthand.
Yeah.
So it was very scary for about 6 to maybe even out to 8 weeks. And then we kind of realized that we're not, even though I was maybe immunocompromised, we're not the highest risk type people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it was a crazy combo of adjustments.
Yeah, that is crazy. So tell me right now, today, if I was to put you in front of a bunch of third graders at career day and they asked you, what do you do for a living? How would you answer them?
So I would answer them as of right now, as of about 2 months ago, I've been selling health insurance while I try to make my way as an author. I'm editing and working on a couple books that I wrote and am hopefully about 3 to 4 weeks away from launching a podcast myself. And my ultimate aspiration is to make health and lifestyle related YouTube videos and podcasts.
So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
Scientist.
Okay. All right. So talk to me a little bit about where you were born and raised and how you kind of evolved into who you are today. How did that happen?
So I was born and raised in Idaho, and I evolved into who I am today basically because I grew up for a while on a small piece of property. Nothing major, but it was out in the middle of nowhere. I had complete freedom to roam, horses and animals, dogs, and all I wanted to do was be like Jeff Corwin or Steve Irwin or some of these guys that wanted to catch animals, live in the wild, and be free. And then when I was 6 years old, we moved to the suburbs. And I mean, it was you couldn't have put me in prison and thought that I was worse off. I mean, it just everything about it just seemed so weird and foreign to me since as early as I can remember. Since that move, all I wanted to do was escape to the wild and live basically off the land and survive. I just couldn't comprehend why my family and I couldn't move to the forest and just hunt and fish and build our own, house and everything. That just was so the draw and pull towards that was, I mean, to the point of a total obsession for me. All I read was survivor books and, books like Gary Paulson. I don't know if you're
Yeah.
familiar with that, Hatchet. I read every book that he wrote, a lot of war books and war journals and historical books, and just was, people, explorers, and going across the prairie. I was just obsessed with this idea that my only way I could find purpose and happiness was to be out surviving. And I've kind of evolved that idea over the years. And that's what I've traveled pretty extensively, and that's what kind of pushed me into an adventurous lifestyle. I cycled through Africa for 9 months and kind of lived in the wilderness most of the time. And it was always that same thing, just looking to kind of reconnect with nature to find myself. And I kind of realized that there was kind of eventually I realized there was kind of three states of existence. There was surviving, just existing, and then creating. And I've only, after having a spinal cord injury and going through everything that I've gone to related to that and kind of trying to rediscover who I am and what defines me, I've realized that to kind of exist happily inside of society and not having to, go to the wilderness and survive, I need to kind of move into a creative zone, not just existing for the sake of, you know, comfort, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Yeah. So you seem like a very adventurous sort. How did everything did you being adventurous and out and active, did that aid you in the recovery of going through this accident and how tumultuous that was for you?
I think absolutely because I had always pursued difficult things. I'd intentionally put myself in scenarios where I was struggling, going out and trying to be in the wilderness for kind of days on end, self-supported, cycling hundreds of miles per day. I was used to pushing myself really, really hard physically and enjoyed that. So that definitely gave me a little bit more fortitude to withstand the pain and the struggle of everything. But it also made it incredibly difficult because I was used to anytime I had anxiety or felt overwhelmed, I would go on a super long run. I would go hiking. I would pursue something really hard physically to kind of escape from that anxiety. And that's just a lot more difficult to do from a wheelchair.
Yeah.
It's definitely, it's definitely. And so it was kind of a double-edged sword where I had to learn new ways to cope with anxiety, and also it gave me a little more probably physical and mental toughness that I'd built up just from the pursuit of hardship.
So talk to me a little bit about who a hero has been for you. Who's been an inspiration to help you?
Well, as far as just my journey with spinal cord injury and even before that, someone I that's been a huge inspiration just because I didn't learn about health and wellness as a kid. I was just stereotypical American kid, American diet. And especially post injury, was struggling with gut problems, all sorts of different health issues because I really wrecked my body. I broke my back in 20 places, all my ribs, punctured lungs, lacerated liver. And so was really and got a massive infection post operation, a staph infection that took it out of me for a long time. And to regain my health, a huge inspiration has been a guy named Ben Greenfield. Um, he's a podcaster up in Idaho as well, and he's kind of a health nut type guy. And just the information and his pursuit of perfection has been a huge inspiration to me. And then other heroes, my childhood heroes were definitely Steve Irwin and Jeff Corwin and those type of guys. And then, I think kind of heroes is probably something. My father is a hero of mine for sure, but heroes and people to look up to is something that I find kind of lacking in some ways.
For sure. So let me ask you this. If you could meet anybody alive on the planet right now that you find fascinating and spend a little time with them, who would it be?
Well, I mean, yep, right off the bat, I would say I love to meet Ben Greenfield, maybe someone like Tony Robbins. He's definitely, I found him inspiring since I was a young guy, and just his message has stayed consistent and the same for so long. I would say he's definitely a hero of mine as well. And those are two people right off the bat. A lot of, you know, yeah, I mean, those are definitely two people that I
Yeah.
would love to meet.
So what are your books about?
So one is basically just a memoir and just a kind of a story of my life, and the other one is a science fiction novel.
Cool. So obviously the memoir is going to focus on the accident, how that changed your life. What were kind of the circumstances? What happened?
So I was in my girlfriend and I were driving in my pickup on a Sunday back from Fort Collins, Colorado to Alt, Colorado, where I lived. And I was in the cattle business. I was trading cattle, working for a friend of mine that had a large cattle company. And he basically called me and asked if I could run over and pull a dead cow out of the pen so that the the dog food people that pick up dead cattle could come pick it up on Monday. I diverted from my route home and I was going down this little two-lane highway. And basically, I was going about 75 miles per hour. So somebody turned in front of me at the last second. The sun was setting behind me and they couldn't see me, and they turned to go, I guess, to their left in front of me, and I hit them and flipped through a telephone pole that was right here. And my back, I wasn't wearing a seatbelt. My back was up against the ceiling and went through the telephone pole, at 75 miles per hour. Thank God my girlfriend she was laying down with her seatbelt on. She got a pretty serious brain injury, but nothing permanent from it. She broke her neck as well, but no spinal cord injury involvement. Overall, she, had serious trauma and injuries, but I fared much worse in the whole situation. And so, um, fire department came, cut me out of the vehicle, and life flighted me to Swedish hospital to have emergency surgery.
So let me ask you this. What what is the motivation every day for you? You've obviously gone through a lot, you've evolved. What is it that gets you up every day? What gets you going and moving and being and evolving every day?
So, since I was 16 years old, the deepest motivator for me is I've wanted to acquire a decent sized piece of wilderness property and basically make it evolves from like an adventure sports resort type thing and a hunting fishing lodge scenario into now it is a place where people can come and heal in the wild, in the wilderness. And the idea has evolved and changed over the years, but having a piece of wilderness property where I can attract like-minded people and grow my own food and harvest, healthy meat from the wild and just live a lot closer to nature and have my family all in one place and be able to support them and take care of them. That's the ultimate dream, and that's the thing that's kept me going through it all.
So, of all the things that you've done in your life, what are you the proudest of?
Um, to be honest, definitely the evolution in the way in my value system and what's important to me and the way that I think in the last 2 years. I think I'm more than anything that I've done or anything that I've accomplished necessarily. The thing I'm most proud of is being able to change what I believe, what I think is right, what's most important to me. And I guess being able to get closer and closer to who I was born as,
Yeah.
to kind of shed the layers of who I became, especially through a teenager where we're wearing a lot of masks and kind of becoming what society expects us to be, or just who our friends expect us to be. And I think I'm most proud of not getting stuck
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah. So if you had a dream tonight, ran into that high school version of you, and you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the life you've lived, the wisdom you've gained, what advice would you give your young self?
Um, don't let fear ever stop you. Don't be scared of what people think. Just be yourself unapologetically. And yeah, don't ever let the opinions of others or the opinions of society or any other opinion than what's in your heart stop you from making a decision. Just
Yeah.
do what you know you need to do.
What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
Um, I mean, probably from maybe it's not direct advice, maybe it's just something I learned from my parents, both my father and my mother, and it's the golden rule. You know, you get what you put out in the world. Treat people the way that you want to be treated. Karma or whatever you want to call it is is real, and family, friends, and being a good person is the first step. And I would say that I wasn't, it is the most important thing and the first step to being happy. I thought you could just pretend to be a good person, I guess. I thought you could just, kind of had this idea that everyone was, I don't want to say bad or anything. I just thought you could pretend to be a good person and you could make decisions for selfish reasons and you could kind of get away with it. And it took me a lot of years and a lot of suffering and a ton of mistakes to realize that it's what you do when no one's looking that counts.
Absolutely. So, Bridger, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, everybody around you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Um, oh, that's a hard question. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just still a kid at heart and someone who desperately wants to make an impact and have a positive mark on the world. And I just want so badly to be surrounded by like minded people who have a spirit of adventure and have health and um, health and spirit in mind, have just a deep desire to live a full, impactful life. And I'm someone who just struggles with, uh, yeah, so struggles with the all of the tendencies I have towards, I don't know, self-destruction or just habit.
Yeah.
And I'm just on this long, slow journey of making the periods of time where I'm making mistakes shorter and shorter. So before I would lose sight of things and kind of go off the rails for 3 weeks at a time or be depressed or let something get me down or whatever it was, uh, or lose sight of my goals for 3 weeks at a time. And then it was 20 days and then 19 days. And I'm just trying to get it to where I get derailed or get depressed or whatever it is from the path that I'm on. And I'm trying to reduce that down to where I can almost instantaneously snap back into a positive, grateful mindset, rather than getting bogged down. So I'm just my perception of myself if I'm just someone on a journey doing my best.
Right on. So if anyone wants to reach out, learn more about you, anything about your world, where can they go?
Instagram is the best place at
Okay.
Bridger Lee Frederick. I have a YouTube channel that's kind of devoted towards spinal cord injury that I am just now getting consistent on. I've been quite unwell for a while, but am going to be getting back on that. So you can check me out on YouTube or Instagram.
Wonderful. Bridger, this has been so inspirational. Thank you, sir, for your time, for your story. Best of luck with the books and the podcast. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it too. Thanks for having me on. It was my pleasure.
Yes, sir. Thank you.